amazing. And that was when I asked him to be in the show. He lives in Silver Spring. So
Excuse me.
he was just here hanging out just for the day. And it was great to meet him. And I love his work. And he's going to tell you all about superheroes.
I'm actually a school teacher a lot of the time, and so one of the classes I taught, or one of the student organizations I advised was called Geek Out Club, and we would hang out and we would talk about comic books and we would pit our favorite superheroes against each other. I'm a huge comic book fan. So you're probably wondering, like, why did I choose this piece to put in this show? So the kid that runs that club, or ran that club, he's since graduated. He's going to college. Christian, he had a homework assignment for the students where they were supposed to come up with the person who was the biggest hero in their lives. A hero is someone who does something brave or courageous, generally for someone else. And in the club, we talked about our favorite superheroes and stuff, and we realized that, like, the characters that were the most compelling were ones who didn't have as much power, right? So, like, except for one kid, actually, all of us agreed Superman wasn't very impressive because if he did an act for somebody, he was invulnerable, right? There was no courage in that. There was nothing like profound or like risky for him in that act. So we came to this conclusion that the characters that actually risked something, who had less abilities and less privileges, and in comic books, characters have abilities like they can fly, they're super strong, they're invulnerable, or some characters like Batman or Iron Man, they have unlimited wealth, and they can design like whatever kind of weapons or something like that. They have abilities, right? The characters that have less ability are more heroic. So he had this assignment where we were supposed to come up with the people that we thought were heroes. And he came to class that day and he talked about his mom. And he talked about all the things that she had gone through raising him and all of the struggles that they had had in their lives and stuff like that. And it was like really touching, and weirdly, I decided that my heroes were my students. And so I talked about how, like, I make these kids do the stuff they can barely do, like at their intellectual, like, highest abilities. I teach science, not art. But, so I make them do this. It is, yeah. I make them do these, like, really difficult things. I push them beyond their abilities and stuff like that. And they have to have courage to perform in that situation, right? So, as Julie said, like, I was just wandering in here and she was looking through my sketchbook, and I was in the middle of this series of paintings of homeless people, and she told me about the show. And I realized that when I was talking to her and thinking about, like, how I'd come to think about heroes through this interaction with my students, I realized that people without homes, right, they don't have any privileges often. And there's always a story that I don't necessarily know. So another thing that happened to me at school during this period of time is there's a janitor at my school named Lee. He doesn't speak very much English. He's Vietnamese, but he always cleans the art room first. And of course, as an artist, that's always where I go as soon as the school day's over with to make art. So one day he shows me a bunch of paintings that he made, and it turns out he's an artist. And when he's scrolling through photographs, I see him in a military uniform. So it turns out he was a hero, and I didn't even know it, right? Because he was somebody that maybe would be overlooked, like a person on the street, right? Somebody you don't look at, that you don't think about their journey or their story. It turns out, like, I mean, he was hugely heroic. He fought in the Vietnam War, and then he escaped when the communists won on a boat on the ocean with a few other people, most of whom died, I gathered, and was, like, literally on the ocean for 2 weeks before he was then captured and imprisoned for like a whole bunch of years, and this is just a guy that works as a janitor in high school. So, okay, back to the hero story. So I had already made a smaller watercolor of this man that I saw in Manhattan. The reason why that I use these combination of techniques, the abstract expressionism and then the realistic portrayal of things, is because I'm trying to give like a sense of urban immediacy to the subject matter, and I'm trying to take, I guess, these people who have dignity because they're humans, who have a story that we don't know, who may or may not be heroic, and who are people that we stereotype as having, mental illness, drug addiction, all of these ideas that we have about homeless people, right? But these people without privileges, who maybe simply surviving is an act of heroism for these people, and taking them out of the context of like being people that we don't look at, and putting them in galleries where we go to celebrate and look at art or things that inspire us. So that's the story.
That's a wonderful